जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपीजन गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपी यशोदनंदन व्रजन रंजन। यशोदनंदन व्रजन रंजन। यमुना तीरवनचारी। यमुना तीरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीरवनचारी। हरि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे। हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे हरे हरे, जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय हरि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव Kunja Bihari Jai. Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Vairāgya-vidyā-nija-bhakti-yoga Srimad Bhakti-vedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. नामाचार्य श्रीला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय. श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय. श्री नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय. श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय. पुरी क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय. गंगा माई की जय. यमुना माई की जय. तुलसी महारानी की जय. भक्ति देवी की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled deities, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled deities, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled deities, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayatmudiraye nashtaprayeshaya bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktira Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 6, Chapter 16, text number 25 today. And it's long. Yeah, I can just read once and then move on. Yeah, I can try. Maybe not a tune, but just Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Mahanubhavaya Mahabhibhuti Pataye Sakalasha. Yes.
Sakalatapata Padavidanikada Kamala Kudmalopalada Charanada Bindi Yugalam Parama Parameshtin. Namaste.
Alright, so I'll read word by word. You can repeat with me and then we'll go in translation and purport. Om, O Supreme Personality of Godhead. Namaha, respectful obeisances. Bhagavate, unto you, the Lord, who are full in 6 opulences. Mahapurushaya, the superior enjoyer. Supreme enjoyer. Maha-anubhavaya, the most perfect realized soul, or the super soul. Mahabhibhuti Pataye, the master of all mystic powers. Sakala Satvata Paribradha, of all the best devotees. Nikara, of the multitude. Karakamala, of the lotus hands. Kudamala, by the buds. Lalita served. Charana Arvindaya Yugala, whose two lotus feet. Parama, topmost. Paramesthin, who are situated in the spiritual planet. Namaste, respectful obeisances unto you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, HG Bhakti-yoga, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. O Transcendental Lord, who are situated in the topmost planet of the spiritual world, your two lotus feet are always massaged by a multitude of best deities with their lotus bud hands. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, complete in 6 opulences. You are Supreme Person, mentioned in the Purusha Shukta prayers. You are the most perfect, self-realized master of all mystic power. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. It is said that the absolute truth is one, but is manifested in different features as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The previous verses described the Brahma and Paramatma features of the Absolute Truth. Now this prayer is offered in Bhakti Yoga to the Absolute Supreme Person. The word used in this regard are Sakal Sattvat Parivradaya. The word Sattvata means deities, and the Sakala means all together. The deities, who also have a lotus feet, serve the lotus feet of the Lord with their lotus hands. The deities may sometime not be competent to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore the Lord is addressed as Paramesthin. He is the Supreme Person, yet He is very kind to the deities. No one is competent to serve the Lord, but even if a deity is not competent, the merciful Lord accepts the humble attempt of the deities. So I'll read few more verses, maybe this one, next one, 26, and then, yes, then we can discuss. Text number 26. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, Narada, having become the spiritual master of Citraketu, instructed him fully in this prayer, because Citraketu was fully surrendered. O King Parikshit, Narada then left with the great sage Angira for the topmost planet known as Brahmaloka. Purport. When Angira had first come to visit King Citraketu, he did not bring Narada with him, because after the death of Citraketu's son, Angira brought Narada to instruct King Citraketu about Bhakti Yoga. The difference was that in the beginning, Citraketu was not in a temperament of renunciation, but after the death of his son, when he was overwhelmed by his great plight, he was awakened to the platform of renunciation by instructions regarding the falsity of this material world and material possessions. It is only at this stage that Bhakti Yoga can be instructed. As long as one is attached to the material enjoyment, Bhakti Yoga cannot be understood. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.44. Bhogaishwarya prashaktanam tapya prahachetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhuna vidhiyate. Quote, in the mind of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Unquote. As long as one is very attached to the material enjoyment, one cannot concentrate his mind on the subject matter of devotional service. The Krishna consciousness movement is progressing successfully in Western countries at the present moment because the youth in the West have reached the stage of vairāgya or renunciation. They are practically disgusted with material pleasure from material sources, and this has resulted in a population of hippies throughout the Western countries. Now, if these young people are instructed about Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, the instruction will certainly be effective. As soon as Citraketu understood the philosophy of vairāgya-vidyā, the knowledge of renunciation, he could understand the process of Bhakti Yoga. In this regard, Śrīla Sārvabhauma Bhaṭṭācārya has said, vairāgya-vidyā-nija-bhakti-yoga, Charitamrita Madhya Leela 6.254. Vairāgya-vidya and Bhakti Yoga are parallel lines. One is essential for understanding the other. It is also said, Bhakti paresam bhuo viraktir anayatracha. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 42nd verse. Advancement of devotional service or Krishna consciousness is characterized by increasing renunciation of the material enjoyment. Narad Muni is the father of devotional service, and therefore, just to bestow causeless mercy upon King Citraketu, Angira brought Narad Muni to instruct the king. These instructions were extremely effective. Anyone who follows in the footsteps of Narada Muni is certainly a pure devotee. And I'll read this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. It's very related here and very practical. So, translation says, devotion, direct experience of Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger comes simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So it's a very long purport, and I have taken some of the point for discussion. So we'll discuss some part from here and then the other one. Majnānatimidandhasya jnānāñjana salākaya cacchurumurmilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave namaha. Mūkam karoti vācālam pangum langhete girim tav kripātamaham bande Sri Guru dīnataranam. Vāṅcchā kalpataruvasya ca kripā sindhuvya cha patitānām pāvanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vāsādi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you so much everyone for allowing me to speak something, and I beg your forgiveness for so many mistakes I would do while reciting these verses and saying anything. So please forgive me with that. So I have few points noted from these sections of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the verse 25, there are a couple of, it's a great prayer, Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaaya Mahanubhava. So Prabhupada is saying that previous verses before this were all prayers to two levels of absolute truth, which is Brahman and Paramatma. And this verse specifically is addressed to Bhagavan, which is Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because it's all talking about Krishna's feature, if we see right, first it says, you are situated in topmost planet of a spiritual world, which means Goloka. So Krishna, you are served by multitude of deities who have lotus-like hands, lotus bud-like hands. Yeah, one can say that maybe, Vishnu and other incarnations also served by deities who maybe have similar feature. But Krishna is multitude, which means really, really great quantity, number of deities. And then says you are full in 6 opulences, which is again addressing Krishna, because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this is how you recognize someone is Bhagavan, 6 opulences. And then it says, master of all mystic power, and you're complete, and you are offered Purusha Sukta prayer. So this all signifies Krishna. So this was Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya itself is addressing the Krishna. And there are a couple of points, Prabhupada in next verse and here writing is that when first time, King Citraketu was lamenting for getting a child from millions of wives, he was not able to get a child who can continue the, succession. That time his spiritual master, and I'm confused though whether Angira Muni was at that time his spiritual master, because later also Narad Muni is considered a spiritual master in this verse, next verse, right? He came and he gave mantra. So maybe he was came to give something as a son, which he lost, because we know whole story here that just for someone new listening, he lost because one wife out of millions of wives has a son, but other wives got envious. This is material world, right? We feel that when we get something in life very valuable, we may be happy, and we try to show to others so that I feel more happy because others see what I have, right? As this world is opposite, right? People become envious. We all have experience, every day in life. If you talk about something, okay, I had this experience. If the person is not on the same plane, they become envious of, okay, well, how can they either don't trust you or, they just, okay, fine.
He was also neglecting him a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. So that's what happened, and it was very horrible. They poisoned the son. It's a small son, right? Like just few months old, and this. So this story happens, Satyuga sometime, and Satyuga was supposed to be considered one of the, people were very pious, and they could, do directly, take darshan of Narada Muni, Angira Muni, but these things were still there because the modes of material nature always act. That's the effect of time, right? And great thing is that we are in Kali Yuga, so we have all the instructions from all other yugas. Think of Satyugas may not have those instructions, or maybe they didn't know, because for us this is recent history, but every yuga has these phases of Krishna's leelas, incarnation and activities, and we are more special because we have a whole documentation of these histories, and we can go back every time. So coming back to here, so Angira Muni again came with Narada Muni, and Prabhupada is mentioning why did Angira Muni didn't bring Narada Muni first time itself to give him, direct bhakti. What do you need a child? Why you need a child? But then that's where it comes relating back to Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhoga Aishwarya Prashaktanam Tvaya Prahar Chetasam Vyavasatmika Buddhi Samadhi na vidhiyate. Because King Citraketu was very much engrossed in his opulence and his family, and he wanted what he wanted. That's it. He was not ready for, just like we, at least me, I can say about me. Many times we just want something like, job, family, money, recognition, power, attention, right? Despite all the philosophy in the, everyday reading, these things doesn't come into practice so often, because so much conditioning we have that we don't realize those words which is here and we read every day, right? And it is also this, which comes back to the process of purification, because unless we are purified, the bhakti yoga, the Prabhupada is mentioning here, that this is called vairāgya-vidyā. Vairāgya means renunciation, right? Renunciation is not there, then the bhakti doesn't come. A lot of people say, I have little tinge of now understanding about bhakti, very little, maybe some time comes and goes. But we get always questions from people, why I'm not developing the taste for Krishna consciousness process. Like, okay, I got a guru, now I have, chant mantra 16 rounds, but it's not, I don't feel like, I always have problem with devotees, dealing with them, and I feel like I should stay away because, this is leading to offenses, and it may further lead to, kind of more problem in my bhakti. So if I stay alone, I may advance better than doing offenses in association of devotees, right? But we don't realize this is a purification process, right? And we are so fortunate to have all the paraphernalia of bhakti, and we will discuss soon like how it is so much important. But Narada Muni came and he gave direct instruction. So here we see, like Prabhupada never compromised on philosophy, like the instructions. He never compromised whoever is the audience, just speak the truth. Because a lot of time now there is a very sophisticated way of saying things and this and that, but ultimately, Prabhupada mentioned that in a way you are committing offense by not telling the truth. It's like, it's a violence against a jiva, a soul, because I'm thinking that a person should like what I am saying to that person. So the person indirectly start liking me than the instruction, because I'm presenting such a way that, person gets more attracted to me, because if the person runs away, then I'm losing something. But we don't realize that this Citraketu was in similar situation, right? Narada Muni would have thought, okay, this person is lamenting for a children, died immediately. Let me say him, okay, you will get another child, you have millions of wives, don't worry, you have kingdom, you will enjoy. No, he just said, shut down everything. Here is a mantra, chant it, and you will realize Krishna, right? No compromise. So the followers of Narada Muni, which is our sampradaya, right? We don't compromise on message, whatever it is. If other people like it, don't like it, what we can do, right? Because many times you cannot please everyone. It's just nature of pleasure comes within. It doesn't come somebody saying good things or bad things, especially at higher platforms, right? And in material world, yes, pleasure comes by talking nicely, and Similarly, when we have dealt with devotees, not every time everything comes pleasurable, right? Like you kind of have interaction and you maintain, okay, maybe. But that's a purification. That's like devotees are here to hit your ego. That, okay, hit the ego so that you realize constantly, otherwise who's going to hit the ego? Everybody is polish the ego and make sure that you feel comfortable. But in this world, we are never going to be comfortable like Citraketu. He was the king of the whole world. And then modes of nature, material nature acts in such a way that your own people will kill your own things which you have, and then suddenly you will be out of nothing, right? So this is a great example. And then comes to vairāgya-vidyā, right? Narada Muni gave that instruction. And then in vairāgya-vidyā, this here Prabhupada mentioning about Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, 6th chapter, Nija-bhakti-yoga, right? So at that time, Narada Muni came and then he got a darshan of Ananta Shesh. But in this age, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here, right, to give vairāgya-vidyā, right? And this, he doesn't have any condition, like you should have knowledge or renunciation, then you get vidya, right? Yesterday we were on Imperial Beach, right? And that is related to Prabhupada mentioning about, we read about, hippies movement at his time. So there were thousands of people on Imperial Beach, and we were dancing, chanting, talking, and so much going on there, right? But all the 15, 20 devotees were just engrossed in chanting. We were not realizing what is going around. Somebody's fighting, police is coming. Like there was a lot of things going on there, like the seraph people running around, the car, the police. We were just standing around, and slowly, initially people were not interested too much, like there were few people, reacting. But as the time goes by, we had did a couple of rounds here and there, and then hundreds of people, like it's like a whole whirlpool, people dancing and doing everything, like it was totally different experience. So there are two things there, right? What Krishna says that everyone has a soul and super soul. And soul is covered by modes of nature and conditioning, mind, intelligence, ego. That's why super soul is not interested in disturbing the soul. Whatever they want to do it. But as the purification, they start hearing Harinam slowly, the instant policing happened and they got interested in, okay, let's see. Though there was a big music concert going on the other part of the same place, right? Nice music, what they like, have been liking throughout their life so far. A lot of people may have first time experience of having few people playing mridanga and some, weird instruments which they've never seen it. And they were just happy, right? So they were also in the same platform. The moment they joined the dancing and kirtan, they got onto the same platform. Like they forgot everything what they were thinking. They were just, dancing. So that's the vairāgya, right? Like vairāgya means you just forget whatever you have been thinking so far. And bhakti yoga immediately starts. It comes parallel. Prabhupada is mentioning it's a parallel line. Which means it's not that I have to first become renounced and then start bhakti, which a lot of people think. Okay, let me earn a lot of money, at least grihasthas, which I sometimes do things, let me confess. So I'm young, let me earn money, do nice job, become some director, big person in somewhere. I have a house, I paid all the loans, now my children should get college. Now I reached to 55. Now there is I should now settle somewhere in Florida, Miami or San Diego and then start exploring bhakti. I mean, that's too late. It's gone. And Krishna don't like, rejected things. He wants fresh. We think that we give old body to him and what is the point, right? He wants fresh. Because he is fresh. God is not a cheap thing, right? And we think now that's the time. And that's because we don't have a vairāgya, right? We don't have association of someone like Narada Muni. Or we may have association, but we are not ready. Like Angira Muni was there to associate with Citraketu, but he was not ready. So he knew, he doesn't interfere, gave a child and move on. And then came back when you're ready. So like we did yesterday Kirtan, who knows, somebody who listened, who liked, may come join our Krishna launch program and get ready for next step, right? Who knows? So that's a kind of process, right? And how do we identify the symptoms of vairāgya, right? When there is an increase in little bit devotion, then Prabhupada mentions here that the taste for material things decrease. That's a parameter. That's a barometer to test out. If I'm not losing the taste for material things, however advanced I may feel to become in bhakti or in devotion or in Krishna consciousness, it may go away very soon, right? Because the Maya is so strong, I may feel, okay, now I've been chanting from 20 years, 15 years, 5 years, whatever, and now I can do a lot of material things in expert way, right? But it's not so easy. So renunciation is mandatory. If not, that's not there, then it's just a showcase of bhakti in nice dhoti kurta tilak and chanting and speaking and dancing and singing nicely. But that will go away. And we have seen so many things in our movement itself, like people go away, right? They just don't stay longer because there was a tinge of, or tinge not, it's a huge, but it was hidden. And Krishna knows in the heart what is there, and he will give whatever you want. He don't behave like, okay, let me behave nicely because this person is outwardly good. So, but then question comes that why to instruct someone in bhakti yoga? Meaning, the situation Citraketu, Maharaj Citraketu was, he was lamenting. He was literally about to die, right? So, a lot of time in material world, when we see people very sad, somebody, they lost their family member or lost property, the process to sympathize is, to say, maybe you should meditate, maybe you should do mindfulness practice, maybe you should go to psychiatrist and have a counseling sessions, maybe you should take a break, go to somewhere in Hawaii or in somewhere island and stay alone, and just get out of it, right? But Narada Muni didn't do all of that. He didn't instruct him in Jnana Yoga. He didn't instruct him in the Dhyana Yoga. He just said Bhakti Yoga. Why? Devotees, we know it because Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says this is a topmost thing. And this includes everything. It's like if you have a $100 bill, that includes $1, $10, $20, $30. It's there. You don't have to find out a new bill for getting. If you have a $100 bill, which is Bhakti Yoga, you can compare and your smaller bills will come. Because the example is in the life of Citraketu itself, because if you read in next verses, you will read, when he started meditating and practicing 7 days, within that he got darshan of Ananta Sesh. And he also became the leader of Vidyadhara's planet. He got the opulence. He became he left this, whatever he was doing, and he became a bigger one. Bigger material opulence. And of course, he's going to commit offense again against Lord Shiva and Parvati. But that's another thing. But the thing is, he was doing Bhakti Yoga by instruction of his spiritual master, and he got material opulence. Prabhupada says that's a byproduct. So if somebody has a desire of material things, it comes as a byproduct. But it's up to us how much we get detached or attached to those things, right? Which comes as a byproduct. Because that's a test, and Maya is testing us in a sense that how attached you are to Krishna consciousness. If you have all the material opulence and if still you are not attached to those things, and that's come the point of Vyavasaya Atimka Buddhi, right? How did you engaged in how do you deal with those things while you're working on your own purification? So then comes the question, the next example Prabhupada giving, 3 things occur simultaneously. 3 things happens together in bhakti. One is devotion. Second is direct experience of Supreme Lord. And third is detachment from other things. Other things, of course, material things, right? So devotion is bhakti, and direct experience of Krishna, which is in our case, deities. In Citraketu's case happened Ananta Sesha, directly interacting, and he got detached to detachment to other things, at least momentarily at that point in time. And which is example Prabhupada gives is hunger and food, right? So when we take prasadam, that's a different thing, but let's compare when we take bhoga, our own bhoga, right? 3 things, we are super hungry and 3 things happens. Moment you take a food in your mouth, you feel nice, like it's nice. If you more hungry you are, however worse is bhoga for you is, it feels nice because the hunger level decides the mindset of pleasure, right? Similarly in bhakti, how much hungry we are will decide how much connected we feel pleasure, right? We feel pleasure of bhakti, right? Second thing happen when you take a food is you feel nourishment, which is you feel that, okay, now I have some energy. After dancing for 3 hours, like you get little juice, and oh wow, so nice, right? And as you take more and more, you get relief from hunger. That third thing happened. So slowly you start losing that so much interest. You want to just finish, and at some point you don't need more, right? And with each morsel you take, you feel more and more your hunger is going out, right? So Prabhupada, and here Śrīla Jiva Goswami Prabhupada mentioned in verses which I read later, Śrīla Jiva Goswami compares these 3 things. He says, bhakti is compared to tushti, which is pleasure, right? Direct experience of Supreme Lord is considered as pushti, which is nourishment and which sustains your life, right? So direct experience of Krishna every day is sustaining our life, right? If we don't have this, then it's gone. It's gonna stay longer, right? And then virakti, detachment, which is kind of cessation of hunger in the food sense, like, but in virakti means detachment. And then Prabhupada went on further. There is one difference he mentioned. So if you take a food and eat, you feel pleasure, you feel nourishment, and then at some point you don't like the food. You are done with it. You just don't want more. But in bhakti, you want more and more and more. Because why? Because this is material food and this is spiritual. So spiritual, everything increases moment by moment, and there is no diminution. It's expansion. It's like some kind of gaseous thing is just expanding. You see nitrogen gas when, just they use in the soul. It's just like, I compare with that, like increasing and increasing, ever increasing, right? Because it's spiritual. And why? Because, so Prabhupada mentions here, how can you convert like we live in material world. At some point in everything in material life, we become satisfied. Some point, like I'm done with family life. I'm done with earning money. Done with everything, because there were a lot of frustration happened in so many situations. Relatives cheated. The family members cheating. Now children's grown up. They're gonna cheat some point, right? And because this is cheating propensity is there by nature. This is age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Quarrel will happen. Everyone's happened. Prabhupada life's happened. So we are not going to be saved, right? But here Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that there is two words, right? One called renunciation, one called detachment. And he describes how they are different. They are different in a sense. Renunciation means tyaga. So I want to renounce something, right? I mean, Prabhupada said you don't have anything to renounce because you don't own anything. What are you going to renounce? But in a sense, if you think of renouncing, so I will just throw away my iPad because I'm renouncing this, something I want to just renounce, right? That's called tyaga. But the detachment is, I have this and I want to use, I'm thinking how can I use this in the service of Krishna? This is called detachment, right? An attachment which I can serve use in the service of mine. I just want to attach to this me. So that's the difference, and I didn't knew so far till today morning what is difference between these two words, renunciation and detachment. Sometimes it looks very similar, like, okay, Prabhu, you are also renounced. But renounce could be something like food, right? Like, you want to just don't want to eat anything. But how can you give it to someone else if you don't want to, want to engage more and more, right? And it's called yukta vairāgya. That's where the meaning of yukta vairāgya, where yukta means you're trying to include, you're inclusive, not trying to exclude things out of it, right? And detachment comes, which is called virakti. Virakti is a word for detachment, right? Vairāgya, yeah, yes. Thank you, Prabhu. And when somebody takes a food, let's stick to that example in another few minutes. What happens? So suppose if somebody has a nice table, set up a food, some material person, and they are super hungry, they will start eating, right? But just a moment before, they may be engaged in hundreds of things, phone calls, meeting. But at that point, when they are taking prasadam or food, whatever, their own bhoga, they don't want any disturbance. If you disturb them at that moment, they're going to just, hit you like anything. Even dogs don't want disturbance. If you disturb them while eating anything, animals don't like that, right? And sometimes sense of food and hunger is more stronger than even sex life. Because sex life is considered, at the time when you are hungry, you just want food. You don't want anything. It's like if you are thirsty, you want water. If it's a nice girl or boy comes and he says, okay, let's go. Like, no, I want water. Because that's your life at that point, right? It's just like that. So because everyone is internally, jiva, and we care about first ourselves, then you care about anything else. So you want to retain the life, right? So people don't want any disturbance. Similarly, if we are focused in bhakti, like this level of food level, like hunger of bhakti, naturally we will not like to have any disturbance of any material things in life. Because if we like, we are trying to be more secular, more sober and inclusive of a lot of things, just so it's not like yukta vairāgya, but just for the sake of, engaging with it and maintaining for longer time. In case if I don't do good in life, then I can use these things. Then this vairāgya will never come. It is not going to come, right? And similarly, so that level of attention is needed. That's the highest level. Even I don't have it, but we are just aspiring, and with the mercy of Krishna, like Narad Muni was not invited by Citraketu to come and give him blessings. This is called mercy. It comes uninvited, just like problems. How do you define a problem? Prabhupada explains. Nobody wants it. Everybody gets it, right? You just can't avoid it. These are three things defines a problem. Similarly, if mercy is something, maybe you are seeking, or maybe sometime you are not seeking to that level, but you get it because the person is merciful, right? And of course you can avoid it because it's a free will. But in problems you can't just do it with this because the material nature is super strict about their rules. But the deities are more kind. They're okay, all right. It's maybe second chance, maybe third chance. Let's try, right? Yes. So these are the symptoms we see in the life of Citraketu, right? He lost it. He has to deal with so many problems, and then he again gets darshan, and then he becomes king of Vidyadharas. He ruling higher planetary system, and then you will see in going forward in here that he will again go through so many problems because offense towards. And that's because, so there's a lot of learning here, and a couple of things I learned here is, reminder of, I think I heard this food analogy, but this is again refreshing, and I didn't knew the renunciation and the detachment, how they are different, and how yukta vairāgya makes it more related, and yes. One of the way I am learning here is to know how much I am growing in Krishna consciousness is how much detached I am becoming to material possessions, which in Grihastha life you do have to have it to maintain family. But whether I am renouncing or I am detached is a question for me to kind of check, right? Because sometimes even parents, parents demand things and then your thoughts come, I'm in bhakti, let me renounce it. What is the point of, dealing with such things? But we can be detached in a sense that you engage them in the process of bhakti. And then detachment means just surrendering myself and everything associated with my body, whether it's family, money, power, education, title, whatever, surrender everything. Which is not easy, it's a process. Citraketu and the Satya Yuga took, thousands of years, and we should not get discouraged if it doesn't happen in few years, right? It's a process, and we should have a faith, like he has a faith in Narad Muni's instruction and mantra, he got result. And if we have a faith, we have a faith in the literature, scriptures, so many acharyas, beginning with Śrīla Prabhupada here, and our spiritual master, we would surely get it. Because we see the examples, and we get the glimpse, like we went for Harinam yesterday, and we saw that how even for a second people were detached. Like, okay, they were engaging their body in the Harinam at least, right? Nothing else, no other things, but at least their body, right? And it gave pleasure to not just them, but everybody watching around was happy, and you see their faces. Nobody was like, I don't like this. Everybody was like, at least not is neutral, maybe just very serious, or smiling a little bit. What's going on? They're just, doing a lot of new things, you never seen it. And there was no difference of color, status, age, who you are. Nobody was asking who you are. They just joined the hand and danced together, right? There was no first, let's introduce ourselves, and like in material life, you don't want to shake hand unless you know the person and all. It was beyond this material platform. So with that, I'll stop speaking, and we'll discuss if you have questions. All goes to Śrīla Prabhupada. Krishna.
Hello. One little point, because you're making differentiation between tyag and vairāgya, which is very important. And it's important to remember that when we hear about those 6 opulences of Krishna, it's not tyag, it's vairāgyos. And she proved so well. He had the 16,108 queens, he was with the gopis, right? And then he just split. Because, he can redirect that at any moment, the vairāgya. And he wanted, for their edification, and ultimately he came back, of course. And sometimes he plays at being very attached because that's pleasing to them. There's also that, where he becomes, as Prabhupada said, a henpecked husband, like that. So that's I want to call attention to one word here, because the words, different. Prabhupada translates upalalita, right? All of these prayers. He's got this prayer that Narada Muni is teaching him, which he's going to utter now. And there's so much, I offer obeisance. You are the master of all of this. You're it's all very much awe and reverence type of thing that he's offering, which is fine. But then in the latter part of this prayer, that incredible word that has like so many syllables, sorts of sakalasapa, but in the end it says upalalita. Now upalalita, Prabhupada translates as massage, which is very nice. But I looked it up. Upalalita means more than just a massage. It's fondling, caressing. You see? So after all of this kind of official prayers of, surrender and you are so great, right, you have the nectar, where they're surrounded by the best of devotees who are at a high level of not just awe and reverence, but affection. And they're massaging his feet constantly with their lotus bud-like hands. It's very sweet. So I wanted to just make that point. And also, when sometimes I notice in the second chapter, there's raga-dvesha-vimuktastu vishayanandiyast apnavide prasadam anagachati. How can you be detached, no raga and no dvesha? We also have to remember that it's not just attachment, it's also aversion. That's also part of the, maya. That we want to be in the middle, which is detachment, neither attachment nor aversion. But Prabhupada would sometimes use the word detachment as the opposite of attachment, but it's not. Detachment is good, attachment is bad. The opposite of attachment is aversion. And so that's very important, because oftentimes, especially in this age, people become so angry, they're averse at everyone. I mean, every day there's some mass shooting now. Yeah. Every day, practically. It's incredible. We don't used to have that. Oh, somebody shot up a whole street party, 28 people are injured and 5 got killed. Children, It's insane. But that's the lowest mode of ignorance, this carrying so much anger and frustration. But devotees, as you described it wonderfully, I wanted to stay here because people come. I thought they would come to the class to be online. I would have gone out with you. But anyway, I'm not going to get into it. We had a very nice time here also with, Bhagavad Gita class. But that's especially in this age, it's so easy for people to get the higher taste. Here these people are coming from nowhere, sinful, but they got the higher taste, at least for a few minutes, and that goes into their, their bank account.
Yes.
And they may, some of those people got literature, a book, whatever, and then take the next step.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, very wonderful class. Thank you for taking it on short notice and bringing it to life so nicely. I like when you think about the verse for a while, because you have these good realizations that you share with us, and you seem excited to do so, and it's enlivening. Dravida started to tap into what I was looking at in the translation, but I had questions about how they further illuminate that in the purport. I should say elucidate it. This idea that the best devotees, they also have lotus hands, lotus bud hands.
Yes.
And, so they say, in the translation, he's being massaged by a multitude of the best. I'm getting specific language here. So the best devotees are doing that. So then in the purport, we go down here, and then it's talking about the devotees who also have lotus feet, serve the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yeah.
The devotees may sometimes not be competent to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore the Lord is addressed as Parama Paramistin. He is the supreme person, yet he is very kind to the devotees. Then no one is competent to serve the Lord.
Yeah.
But even if a devotee is not competent, the merciful Lord accepts the humble devotee Lord. So you have the best of the devotees, ones who aren't super and then competent, and then no one is competent. So how do we...
So I think to begin with, what I understand, and Ruda Prabhu can correct and comment, to begin with, no one is competent, right, to serve the Lord, because to no one's being competent means you take a humble position that, okay, I'm not competent. Because the moment I feel I'm competent, then the ego kicks in, like false ego, even the... and then by the mercy of Guru and Krishna and the deities, you become competent. Competent doesn't mean then you achieve the result. It's like there is a qualification. In any post, you get a qualification. qualifications mean you will get to showcase your abilities, but that's a test. So whether the examiner is going to take your candidature to the next level is the examiner's choice. There is always subjectivity. There are 100 people apply for the same thing, only 2 people get selected. Now everyone was qualified because they were able to apply for it, but only why 2 people got it? So the examiner is competent enough to allow who is going to serve. Like here, there may be hundreds and thousands of people may feel that I'm competent, right? But there is Krishna, that's what Prabhupada is saying. I may feel that I am competent to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, but it's up to the Krishna who is going to allow, because the service is something, serving is what we are talking here, service, which means suppose if I want to serve you and I may be competent to serve you, but if you don't want me to serve you, my competence is useless, because you are a recipient, I'm trying to do something, right? So here that's one thing. Second thing, the lotus feet, right? The devotees itself, the people who are serving have a lotus feet and lotus bud-like hand, which is exemplifying and relating back to in Goloka. When we leave this body, go back to Goloka, we're going to get the same type of body. Then only we can serve. With this body, no. A lot of people want to take this body actually. And a lot of, yeah, conception is there that, okay, can I go with this body? Because they just like this body. So somehow you have to leave this body. And that's the whole science, research and space science. People don't believe there is another planet where human can exist, right? And they think that with this body, with some rocket, I will go to other planet and live there, but it's not possible. If you want to live in Everest or in Alaska, you need to have a super heavy coat training to go and live there. And what about living in other planetary systems? Using this body, coming from some cold areas to San Diego, or from San Diego you want to go cold areas, you need to train your body, take some medicine before you adjust to atmosphere. But same thing in Goloka, right? We have to give up this body. And so initially no one is competent. When you get into the process, you are empowered, and at the end, I may be competent, but if the person don't want to take my service, my competence is useless. I may be big scientist, but nobody wants to hire me for work. What is the use of that competence, right? So that's where, deities, Krishna's mercy is end. Just like our boss mercy is end, whether you are promoted or not, whether you go to other office, join a new company, or you stay there, who cares? Right.
Thank you for the class. You mentioned a few things, so I'm going to comment. When Dvijamani and I were heading to Balboa Park for Sankirtan, book distribution, we were passing through Mission Bay, and people were barbecuing,
Yeah.
And we were just thinking, look at that, they're just trying to enjoy. And what is this? It's dead flesh,
Yes.
So anyway, and then when we were at the park, people were very patriotic, wearing red, white, and blue. And then Dvijamani, myself, and Vijay were just distributing books, we forgot it was 4th of July. And I remember you mentioned something about, we should preach as it is. And Śrīla Prabhupada would say, purity is the force. So there's my neighbor, I'm trying to cultivate him. So I was, talking with them. And then he said, I'm going to go fishing, And before this, he understood karma. He said, I'm a strong, firm believer of karma. And I said, I kind of paused, and then he said, is something wrong? And I said that line, should I flatter you or should I tell you the truth? So I said, tell me the truth. So I told him, if you go fishing, there's a reaction to that, So he was telling me, but I just bought $1,000 worth of fishing gear, and my friends they're not going to like me. And I said, well, they're not your friends, and if you have to please them in that way. So anyway, long story short, he texted me. He said, I'm not going to go fishing like that.
Wow.
And he said, thank you, So yeah, you have to tell him sometimes, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing story. Anyone online? No. 4th July. effect. Okay, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. God bless.